Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's March 5, 2025. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. Also want to thank Peter Quadrino of Austin Finnegan's Wake Group for introducing me to Neal. I know I'm not going to get it right. How do you pronounce that second name, Neal?
Kosaly-Meyer.
Kosaly-Meyer.
Yeah, the only hard part is the first part is Hungarian, which phonetically
Kosaly-Meyer.
makes sense if you know Hungarian, and if you don't, it doesn't. But Kosaly,
Okay, where are you calling from, Neal?
Seattle.
It was really a pleasure and honor to do part one. Here we are, part two. Want to explore your tipping points. You kind of got three callings in life: music, theater, Finnegan's Wake, and then museum rep. Where's your tipping point where you go, oh, I'm going to pursue music? Your tipping point, I'm going to pursue the wake. I'm going to pursue the museum rep. Where's those tipping points?
Well, the tipping point for music was probably in utero. I mean, my mother was a singer her whole life, and so I'm sure I was hearing a lot of music, coming straight from her for a lot of the time. I mean, even before I was born. My
But
dad was,
again,
yeah,
then you're hearing live music as you're growing up, teenager. Yeah, but there's at some point you go, I'm going to pursue learning piano, and that's going to be a calling probably.
I was begging to get piano lessons from the time they finally relented and gave me piano lessons when I was 8 years old. But but I wanted to. It was like I was just surrounded by music, immersed in music.
Yeah.
I was singing when I was a little kid. I was playing piano by the time I was 8. Playing trumpet in the band by the time I was 10.
Yeah.
And it was, it was just like that was just the water I was swimming in.
Beautiful. So then what'd you study in college?
Music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you talked a lot about Stuart Dempster making a huge impact on you. What an amazing teacher. And so then now, before we get into Joyce, just being a theatrical performer, did you go into theater and doing plays, or it was just performing music?
Not really. I mean, I was a musician, and working with Stuart, who is very much a multidisciplinary artist.
Yeah.
And he would, among other things, Stuart was one of the faculty organizers of the University of Washington's Free Improvisation Ensemble.
Yeah.
Which would frequently collaborate with dancers, and many of those pieces would get pretty theatrical pretty quickly. As soon as I encountered John Cage is another polymath artist and very interested in theater, and a lot of very theatrical projects that he was involved in. I mean, the Merce Cunningham Dance Company in particular is some of the most extraordinary theater that we've had in the last 100 years.
Unbelievable. What age are you discovering Cage and he's having an influence on you?
First kind of ran into him my first year in college, so I would have been 18 years old, and he was kind of I didn't really have a great idea of what he was about until I got to Seattle, which would have been 78, and that's when
what age are you at?
I'm 20 at that point.
So 20, you're 20 years old when you really understand what Cage.
And that's when I got Silence, which I only found on the shelves because it was Stuart Dempster was requiring that text for a class of his, which I didn't even take. I mean, I really didn't know Stuart at that point, but that's how I found Silence.
You mean the book called
The book,
Silence by
the book,
Cage?
Silence,
I've got
lectures and writings.
I've got that book. Beautiful. Okay, then let's put the wake off to the side for a second. And now the tipping point to be a museum rep, because your museum's rather unique, right?
Yeah, that was. I was working at Tower Records in 1999, and that was the Experience Music Project. Currently, we changed our name to Museum of Pop Culture in 2016, but they opened in 2000, and before they opened, there was a call for jobs. And my wife actually sent my resume into them to begin with. So it wasn't that I was interested in working in a museum per se, but here's Jimi Hendrix Museum is basically what it was, the original working title for the place. And so, yeah, that sounds like a pretty cool gig. So I've been there. So I started there May of 2000 and have been there pretty much ever since.
25 years, that's pretty cool. 2000. So now let's go into this. Screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What? I love you, Neal, because you laugh and have fun. This is what we're all about. But you're very wise and you're really articulate and concise. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're writing a piece of music? When you're composing music, what role does intention play?
It's very different. I mean, I have two hats that I put on as far as making music, and one of those is if I'm writing a rock song, which I know different people work different ways with. When I'm writing a song, I always start with the lyrics.
Wow. Rock
And
song is
and
you start with the lyrics. Wait, let me interject. The Brill building?
absolutely,
They
yeah,
they they go, "Did you start with the lyrics or the music?" They go, "No, we started with the phone call."
yes, yeah.
Okay, so with a rock song, you start with the lyrics. Go ahead.
Um, I say I'm starting with the lyrics, but what I almost always find, I get the lyrics written out, and then I sit down with the guitar or the piano, and it's like I already know what I'm doing. It's like I
Right.
write the lyrics and then the music, and it's like I kind of had without doing it on purpose at all. It's like I put down the lyrics, I pick up the guitar, and I'll say, so let's see what the guitar part is for this, and it all generally feels like it was there all along. It's just I can't tell what it is until I actually
Well,
play it.
maybe form follows function, but there's that
Yeah.
intention. What's the intention?
Well, that's an interesting. See, I guess this gets to intention right away. So I purposefully go with words first because I honestly wouldn't know how to do it the other way. That just feels very
Yeah.
awkward. Um, and without intention, the the musical arrangement is writing itself down at another level while I'm writing these words on paper.
Yeah.
And then I discover that musical portion of it when I sit down with the instrument.
So, let's stay on the rock in
Sure.
songs. Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your potential listener when you're writing your rock song?
Mm. I hope someone will listen. I mean, we haven't. Uh, we hadn't. Our band is just me and my sister. She sings and plays drums, and I mostly play guitar. I've had keyboards up there every once in a while. And we haven't been playing out much at all because the Wake project really takes up a lot of bandwidth. Probably no surprise.
Yeah.
Uh,
But what's the name of that group?
Your mother should know. That's the name of the group.
Your mother should know. Very good. And so let's go to, and you can wander into piano. Let's just stay in the music realm for a few minutes here. Your
Sure.
mother should know. So McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. Knife and fork extends our teeth. The shutter in a camera or projector extends our eyelid. It may be non-tangible, say religion or philosophy extends consciousness. What does the piano extend for you? What humanness?
Well, I've been playing piano since I was 8. So it really does feel like an extension of me. Especially when I'm playing, and giving it my full attention.
Yeah.
Um, it also feels like with the piano, especially this long-term work in progress that I've been talking about, it feels like it's the piano is a partner or a co-performer.
Yeah. Really good. So my friend says the 3 T's of music are technique, theory, and taste. So technique, you learned how to play piano. Theory, you know the structure. How does one acquire taste?
Hmm. Listening with attention.
Yeah.
Listening and paying attention to how you're listening and to what you've heard, and noticing when something surprises you.
Good.
Noticing when my wife came up with this a while back. Our household, the five of us, went to see the film Cats, and 3 of the 5 did not have a very good time. And I was among those 3 that didn't really think much of the movie. But Anna loved it. Anna loved it. My daughter Haley loved it. And when I'm asking Anna, so what was it that you liked about this? And she says, when I first saw those tails, I got a big smile on my face and it wasn't going away.
Wow.
And so since she said that, and Anna is a brilliant clinical psychologist. I don't know if I sung her praises previously, but she's an absolutely fabulous PhD clinician.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing that she can say where she notices about herself that suddenly there's this smile that just came. And I use that now too. And I notice when something puts a big smile on my face, that's something to pay attention to, that there is something that is bringing pleasure, joy, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so that's as far as taste. I mean, that's actually, I guess that's spot on, because here we have 2 people who loved cats and 3 people who didn't so much love cats. But Anna had the most solid, grounded reason for, what did you like about it? It put a big smile on my face. And so that's something. That's some taste radar, I guess. I mean, it's about
Taste
knowing yourself.
Taste radar, smile on my face. Really good.
Yeah.
So McLuhan said 2 things here. Song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. Any thoughts on that line by McLuhan?
Hmm. I'm not well, first of all, I'm not sure that song is slowed down speech. I mean, I think all speech is song all the time. I mean, it's just that's not how we listen to speech. Um, this is very big working with the wake. Um, when I was first starting to really learn the wake for this project, there was a quick minute when I was thinking about I was going to literally sing the whole thing, that it was going to basically become a musical. Um, and I quickly moved back from that because I feel like the wake, one of the ways the wake works, and even if you're not doing what I'm doing, you're reading it, there is a way that each passage will lead you. It's like there's a continuum of, monotone speech to, virtuoso aria in there, and every little micro slice along the way. And it felt like it was important. Yes, the wake is music, but the wake is music in an expanded sense. The
Yeah.
wake is music in a sense which includes normal, boring speech, that can at any moment turn into folk song or chant or um, incantation or
Yeah.
opera aria or noise, noise art. I mean, the thunderclaps. Um, so what else did McLuhan say? I
No, yeah,
got.
that was really good. See, no one ever hears.
He said
No
slow.
one.
He said song is slowed down speech, and I disagree with
Then,
that. But what was
yeah,
the
the,
next
the
thing?
second part is the reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference.
That makes a whole lot of sense for me. That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense.
So the
Um,
way the Eskimos talk affects the way
mhm,
they make
yeah,
their music. Yeah.
yeah. I'm learning Hungarian now, um, and I'm frequently struck by the particular kind of music that Hungarian has. Um, and and I can only say that that makes a great deal of intuitive sense to me,
Yeah.
that language you're speaking, I mean, and actually it lines up with what I was saying before. Is if when we are speaking, we're always unconsciously singing. We're singing without thinking about it as singing.
Yeah.
And so that's naturally going to feed right into the way we sing when we think we're singing.
Yeah. What's more fundamental, music or language?
Oh, they're both deep. I mean, Chomsky talks about there being these language archetypes. I mean, these building blocks, these predispositions, like that, like grammar is kind of built in. Um, and and so I would have to say I don't know. I think that
Good. I
is
like that. For
that is I'm gonna go with I don't know, unless we're gonna really like open up the
yeah,
question and say, okay,
yeah,
what is music, is there a predisposition to music? I think there probably is. Um, I mean, I guess that's also, I think that I've heard it, opinion that like that there are tunes like da na 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 that are found everywhere. I mean, that kids, wherever they come up, I mean, that there are archetypal kind of melodic formulations and things like that also. So there's stuff that, um,
Yeah.
we've been making. I think human beings have been speaking languages and making music for a really, really, really long time.
Yeah, I know another example because it's big in Seattle. Louie Louie.
Yeah, but
I know that whole history because it's the clave beat. It was
yeah,
Richard Berry's in
Richard
East
Berry,
LA, and
absolutely.
he's hearing Chuck Berry do Havana Moon, and he goes, I can do the clave beat,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
and the Seattle dudes go, we could do it even better than them, not knowing they were doing it better. And then the
We're
US
gonna play
government,
it. We're gonna play it a lot louder. Yeah.
yeah, and then Zappa quotes it over 20 times over 30 albums.
Yeah.
And he's obsessed with it. But this is a little off, but I gotta interject it so I don't forget. Judd at New York Wake just said, oh yeah, I was looking at this Ornette Coleman album, and there's a title of a song called Sleep Talking. And he says, that's
Just
the
listening to
way.
that. Yeah.
Instead of sleepwalking, you're sleep talking.
Yeah.
So this is
Which
that language.
extensively quotes Stravinsky.
What is
Too. I mean, it's like sleep talking is that's on Of Human Feelings, I think.
Yeah, you mean on Ornette. You
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
Ornette quotes Stravinsky on his album?
No, 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 no. Yeah, that's like the main tune that he keeps going back to in that track in Sleep Talking.
Oh my God, I
Yeah,
didn't know that. Ornette quotes Igor. Oh,
yeah.
that's funny. You'll love this. My friend hung out with Charlie Parker, and he
Hmm.
said, dude, you played a Stravinsky lick. And I
Hmm.
know it. It's at the beginning of this album. And Charlie
Yeah.
goes, no, it isn't. And he went over to his house and he put the what do you call that thing that on the stylus down. And he
Yeah.
quoted at the beginning of the Stravinsky piece. I wish I knew the title. And it quotes it. And Charlie Park goes, no, it's at the end. And he picks it up and puts it at the end. And it was quoted at the end. So they both were right.
Uh-huh.
So that's good. So now it is tell me, talking about language, tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh. A song that has no lyrics that makes you laugh. And how could that be possible, Neal? Isn't laughter come from words?
Instrumental that makes me laugh. Well, Booker T and the MGs definitely make me smile.
Oh,
Um,
that's good.
and that's but that yakety sax on the Boots Randall thing, that's funny. Da, da, da,
Boots
da, 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 da,
Boots
da, da,
Randall.
da.
Is
You
that
know?
is
I
that the
mean, that's
one that
that, and I think, and I don't know if that's. It feels like that's funny.
yeah, but is
Just
that the
just
Benny
because.
Hill? Is that the Benny
Yeah,
Hill?
that's the one. I mean, it's
Yeah,
always played behind just like zany hijinks ensue moments.
I
But
get
I
I
think
get
it's
that.
funny.
It's the Benny Hill
I
theme.
think
It's
it's funny
Yakety
to
Yak.
begin with. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what's the function of music?
Well, I mean, I like John Cage found the same function ascribed to music. I think one was from Ananda Kuraswamy was quoting somebody else, some Indian musician, and who said the function of music is to quiet the mind in order to make it susceptible to divine influence.
Amazing. I
And
love
then,
that.
Cage really took that. He really liked that. He also, and then he found the same idea and almost the same words from 17th century English church music writer, and I can't remember the name right now, but it was almost the music is function is to quiet the mind to make it susceptible to divine influence.
Wow.
And then I think, and then I'll connect that because maybe this opens it up a little bit. The another one, also from Cage, as he's talking about Sri Ramakrishna, um, said that music is a means of rapid transportation to life everlasting, and Cage like to append to that. He says, music is a means of rapid transportation to life everlasting, or, to my mind, to life, period.
Oh, isn't that neat? To life, period.
Life,
Yeah.
period.
Very good. Because Mickey Hart, drummer for the Dead, said, no, music started because they wanted to warn you they were coming to steal your food, so they'd hit the logs, And then my friend says, no, it's to dance. In the function of music, a friend, one of my favorites is to keep you from going insane. So, I mean, it's endless why humans invented music. And I don't know if it was with you, but David Moss, the amazing avant-garde vocalist. He taught me that music is the sound of being alive, and that's close to the third Cage one. But he said New Guinea don't have a word for music. McLuhan loves that. The Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can. And then I looked it up. New Guinea and these people in Africa have no word for music. They just do it.
They just do it.
Yeah. And so on to silence, Thelonious Monk said, silence is the loudest sound in the universe. In fact, my friend, so how do you incorporate silence in a composition? How do you know when to not play something? Because Miles talked about the space between notes, and George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, says funk is the absence of. So talk about that. How do you know when not to play? How do you learn that?
Well, as a student of John Cage, I mean, this is something that I've thought about a lot.
Yeah.
And that mainly comes up when I'm playing my piano piece, which is the title of which is Gradus, for Fuchs, Tesla, and Milo the Wrestler. And the three dedicatees there are Johann Joseph Fuchs, was the originator of a manual of species counterpoint, where he was one of the first guys to talk about learning how to write music in a step-by-step way.
Yeah.
And that was his text was called Gradus ad Parnassum. And it was a way where one step at a time you would learn how to write good 16th century four-voice counterpoint. Tesla, who I think would be rolling in his grave at the co-optation of his name by the guy who's currently using it. This is I'm referring to a specific legend about Nikola Tesla, which may be apocryphal, but here's the story. So there's a cop on the beat back in the day, and he notices there's this guy sitting out in the middle of the bridge. I don't know which bridge it was, some New York bridge, and he's very intent. He's really focused on something. So the cop goes to check out and make sure everything is kosher. And he gets to the middle, and here is this guy who, spoiler, this is Nikola Tesla himself, is sitting there with a hammer and a watch. And he's looking at the watch very closely, and he has the hammer poised. And at a certain interval, pretty long between, he'll tap the bridge with the hammer. So the cop stays and watches for a little bit and presumes that this is some harmless, crazy guy, and but he's not doing anybody any harm. So I'll go on my way. So he walks on his beat, which is pretty long, and hours later, he comes back. Same guy is sitting out in the middle of the bridge with his hammer and his clock. Except what he notices is the bridge is started to kind of move gently up and down in a periodic rhythm. And the guy is continuing to tap it with the hammer. And at this point, the cop has a bad feeling about this. And now he goes and tells Nikola Tesla, you need to stop this and you need to go home. So that's the story about Tesla. And Milo the wrestler is a Greek legend about a really, really super strong wrestler who claimed that he got as strong as he did by he took a newborn calf in his arms and carried it around the barnyard. And every morning he would go back out and pick up that calf and carry it around, so that by doing that every day, by the time the calf had grown to a full-grown ox, Milo could still pick him up and cart him around the barnyard. That's how he got to be such a strong wrestler. And these are all Fuchs' species counterpoint, Tesla at the bridge, Milo with the cow. These are all metaphors for what I'm trying to do with this piano piece, which is to learn to play the piano one note at a time. And in practice, what that meant was that when I really took this on about 23 years ago now, I took like the single A, the lowest A on the piano, and devoted a 20-minute improvisation to that, just that A, no other notes on the piano at all. And then the next session I had, I took the A an octave up, and again devoted a 20-minute improvisation session to that. The third session was both of those A's together. And then I've been systematically moving through that to.
So, but I mean, Neal, how do you know not to play it? I think it's an amazing, like, peaceful sounding piece where you just hit the note and let it resonate, probably for a period of time. How do you know this?
Well, that's when you're playing with a single note or with very few notes. You're dependent on the silence,
Right?
I mean, you can't just keep banging away on this because it gets very unmusical and very tedious very fast. But specifically thinking about silence in the way Cage thinks about silence, which is there is always something to be heard. I can always stop and say, okay, I've done enough of this for a little bit, so I'm just going to listen to the birds singing outside and the cars going down the street and the HVAC in the room that I'm playing. And in a minute or so, I'll be ready to come back and play some more of these notes. And it's not just about silence, but it's also if I'm going to play in such a way that those quiet ambient noises will be heard as part of the piece. Most of the time I need to play very quietly.
Yeah.
Also, when I am playing, because I want it to be able to be, I want there to be an actual dialogue that's going back and forth between the notes that I'm playing and the sounds that just happen to come in the window when I'm not playing.
Really, really good. That brought up three great things. You can't keep banging at the note, or you'll just become Philip Glass or Steve Reich. Then the second one was this great avant-garde music composer, singer I interviewed last week, she says, I like this Stockhausen piece where you're going along in the score, and for one note, it says, when you hit this note, don't think. It's like Eric Satie says, play like a nightingale with a toothache. And then the best one was the Tesla banging on the bridge with the clock. Do you know about Nellie, Monk's wife? She took the kitchen clock and hammered it into the wall of the kitchen, so it never, something about times, like stopping time.
Yeah.
So on to notes. My friend, the greatest artist in Venice, California, Dougos, says Thelonious Monk heard all the notes that Charlie Parker heard, but only decided to play some of them. So, it's that you've formed an aesthetic of discerning what music is made of. And Copeland says the 4 ingredients are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. First of all, in non-academic terms, what is tone color? To the normal human walking down the street, how would you describe what is tone color?
I would just give examples. I would say, what a trumpet sounds like, right? Clarinet sounds different. Piano sounds different from that.
Yeah.
Shakuhachi different from that again.
Yeah.
I mean, those are colors.
Now, when you're composing your piece, let's stay on that piece. I'll just call it the Tesla piece to, shorten the title.
Gratis is what I call it for short.
Gratis. So. I'm sorry. Let's call it gratis.
Sure, I like the Tesla piece too. But
how do you navigate, focus? I don't know the right verb I'm trying to work at, but you get the idea. Melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. How do they play a role? Like all 4 of them are equal, or like you already said with your rock song, you start with the lyrics and then the music sort of falls in perfectly. But just discuss those 4 elements: melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color.
Gratis is, I think of it as quantum composition or subatomic composition.
Yeah.
And what normally in music I would say melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. Those are the equivalents of atoms, molecules, cells, compounds. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at what's going on below all that. I want to look at what happens is so what does melody mean if I'm only using if I'm only playing one note for when I do this live, I mean the sessions that I'm working at when I'm just building the piece are 20 minutes long. When I play it in performance, it's a 2-hour piece with a 20-minute section, a 40-minute section, and an hour section. And it's going to be according to chance operation, whether one section is going to have 1 note, another section is going to have 2 notes, and another section is going to have 3 or more. But I've ended up in situations, it's not hard to end up in a situation where I'm working with only 1 or 2 notes for an hour at a time.
Wow.
And so that is what is melody if there's only 1 note? Is having 2 notes alternating enough to qualify that as melody or harmony? I'm interested in something in taking a very long time. I mean, this is like I've been working on this for 23 years now.
Yeah.
And occasionally I'll get to something where it sounds like chords or melodies are emerging.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. They emerge, and even when I have more than two notes, it's like kind of the rule that I make for myself is try to manage these. I had a session the other night where I was working on where I had 49 notes on the keyboard, and they were in fact the notes of a diatonic scale. So there's all sorts of possibility with that for chords, melodies, counterpoint to come up. But my rule, insofar as I can adhere to it, is I want to play with those 49 notes as if I still only had one or two to work with.
That's
I want to
amazing.
listen in and remember that. So it's
Yeah.
so um so I'm interested in finding for myself and hopefully conveying to my listeners the music that precedes melody, harmony, tone, color, and rhythm. I mean, there's a lot of tone color. I mean, that's actually
Yeah.
that's the challenge with this is to find color when you've only got one key to work with or one or two. You know, how do you? And some of that comes from, you know, kind of really trying to find as many dynamic levels, as many places on the spectrum of very soft to very loud as I can find in there, and using the damper pedal and things to really kind of find colors in there.
That's funny because Captain Beefheart plays a one-note harmonica solo on Zappa's Thingfish, and so I like that. I like when you said what's below all that. One person said melody and rhythm. Rhythm is melody. So this is this is the deeper level you're talking about. And you mentioned Pauline Oliveros, the LA Free Press in 1969 they were interviewing Frank Zappa, and they said, you mentioned Pauline Oliveros working with sound above the audible and below, creating a mass, and you like the idea. And here's what Frank said: not that it created a mass, it created something audible. It produced a sum indifference tone, which happened to be located within the audible frequency range. By combining something so high you couldn't hear it and something so low you couldn't hear it, it yields something in the middle that you could hear. Whether or not you like what you heard in the middle is another question. The concept's brilliant. So, any
Yeah,
thoughts on that response by Frank?
it's great. I mean, I love his ear about that. I mean, there is, I mean, that's both a great ear and a great mind, and a great
Yeah,
appreciation toward the way Pauline would investigate sound. I mean, in her incredibly fresh way that she um, went at sound and music. I mean, for her entire life.
yeah,
I mean, she was such a wonderful person. I actually, it wasn't on purpose, but it was I booked her last performance in Seattle. Um, she and Stewart were best friends,
yeah.
and his 80th birthday was 2016. So I organized a performance for his 80th birthday, and we put a band together that included Pauline and her partner Ione, Greg Powers, who was a tremendously gifted one of Stewart's trombone students, Stewart's own son Lauren, who's a cellist, and his wife Margaret, who danced, and then I was playing piano.
Nice.
Um, and Pauline played harmonic. I mean, getting to back to the poetic rhymes going in here. Pauline played harmonica for that performance.
Oh, wow.
It was absolutely spine tingling stuff.
Yeah.
It
She's
was it
amazing.
was so wonderful.
Deep listening. Well, here's
Yeah,
another one, Neal, in regards. Why is
yeah.
4/4 time the most commonly used time signature in Western music? Now I'm going to go on a little rant and you can go off wherever you want.
Yeah.
Besides being intuitive and easy, it might be because it's in sync with walking or marching or our own heart rhythm. But Captain Beefheart said he liked to vary from 4/4 time. He called it the mama heartbeat. He said the beat, the same old 4/4 time. He said the beat is so related to fascism. It's so fixative, so hypnotic, so synthesized. It's dangerous to the heart. It makes it go faster than the heart. Disco is dangerous. He wanted non-hypnotic music to break up the canatonic state. And Beefheart, especially his innovative drummer Drumbo, expanded the drunken sailor stagger in percussion, sort of like Buster Keaton turning a stumble into, a dance. And the last, my sister was a cheerleader, and she used to take a empty soup can, and throw it down the stairs, and it would bounce and go, so she'd get a clap beat out of it. So what is this thought about why is 4/4 time the most commonly used time signature in Western music, and any other thoughts about it?
It's the simplicity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, Louie Louie, I mean, it's like Blitzkrieg Bob. I mean, it's, it's fun to succumb to that.
Yeah.
Um,
But
is
it the heartbeat? Because some people say, no, our heartbeat's in 3/4. But why?
I mean, I think it would be. I mean, I think heartbeat is, um, heartbeat's probably more complicated than that. If you actually listen to anybody's heartbeat, it's probably speeding up and slowing down, and it kind of depends on how you listen to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just at wonderful performance the other night. There's a group that only comes out and plays in public like every couple of years or so. There's Anardana. It's Anardana, and it's an educational initiative, brainchild of Helene Erickson, Eriksen. And Helene will gather a group of, in this case, it was about 7 women, and they spend a couple of years over the course of 10 intensive weekends learning 7 or 8 dances from basically the Islamic world, from North Africa, the Balkans, Middle East, Central Asia, Northern India, getting as far east as Afghanistan, and maybe as far west and north as Romania. And the music is stunning, and I think there was almost none of it was 4/4.
Yeah.
There was 10/8s, and there's these African Nubian beats that were being played. I mean, it's mostly recorded music, but the women are also using a fair amount of hand percussion and vocalizing. So I don't know if 4/4 is really as universal as it's claimed. I mean, I love 4/4 time. I mean, when I think of 4/4, I mean, I think of Roadrunner by the Modern Lovers, which is the record I'll never get tired of hearing. And
Oh my God! What's that guy's name?
It's just like 4/4 can be the basis of so much incredible stuff.
No, what's his name? I can't think of it because
Jonathan Richman.
Jonathan Richman. He used to hang out here in Venice, California.
Yeah.
But this is
He's a
Neal. This is
wonderful guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is similar. Ruth Draper said the key is to be in you as a performer, doing your experimental music, doing your rock
Yeah.
and roll, doing your theater performances of the wake. The key is to bring the audience up onto the stage and into the scene with you. It is they who must give you even more than you give them in the way of imagination and creative power. That
Yeah.
sounds good, but how do you do that?
Well, the Anardana performance the other night, I mean, they got to the end, they did their last number, and they just, went out into the audience and brought everybody up on stage, and we were just all dancing in a big circle.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
But how do
Um,
you do it?
when I staged John Cage's music for piano at the University of Washington in 1985. We had 4 pianos distributed throughout the space and invited the audience to just wander. I mean, you could sit or you could come in, you could come sit down right next to us on the piano bench. You could move around in this whole area. Um, it's when Pauline did her Anarchy Waltz performance at Cornish School in 78 or 79. It was the performance started with a performer playing a waltz on stage in the Cornish Theater. Um, Same theater where John Cage invented the prepared piano, by the way. And in short order, dancers and actors appeared and again basically invited people to just wander around the whole, not just the stage area, but the whole building. We were wandering around and there was butcher paper up on the walls and we were, you know, painting and moving. And Pauline is just wandering around the whole area with a big smile on her face and her accordion and just playing waltzes the whole time. It was incredible, and when I was, this was like I was 20 or 21. I'd never experienced anything like this. um
Well, I think you nailed it. The simple word is you wander. Not all who wander are lost, wander and wonder. But this is Leonard Cohen. The only way you can sell a concert is if you put yourself at risk. And if you
mhm.
don't do that, people know.
Yes,
What role does risk play in your creative process?
it's stuff I'm doing. I mean there's a lot of risk. um when my sister and I went up and played our rock and roll set Thanksgiving Eve the other day, we hadn't done that in a few years, and so it was exhilarating, and we had a big crowd because this was my friend John, whose band Dead Bars has become kind of a big deal in Seattle and maybe starting to get there in other places. But he always loved what we had do and had been pestering me for a long time, say, you guys need to come up and play. You should open for us. You should open for us. So we did, and we come out there. I'm like, the Sunset Tavern is packed. I mean, it's full of people. We'd never played for that many people, and so that was exciting. And I think we did all right. Um, the Wake. I mean, the biggest risk that I remember with Finnegan's Wake was maybe when I did Chapter 6, the quiz section, and had come to the conclusion that Joyce was thinking about that chapter as kind of an encyclopedia of tedium, of how many different ways a human being can be really, really boring. Um, and it was the first really long chapter that I had learned. It takes about 2.5 hours to recite that. Um, and it just goes on and on and on and on. I had learned it really well. I'd learned like the kinds of characters I felt like was playing, but I felt really apprehensive that if I perform this right, it's going to be really irritating. You know, I'm going to have done all this work, and the only thing I will succeed at doing is pissing everybody off who's come to see the show. And that was not the experience people had. I mean, they really liked it. I got some amazing comments about it, and I learned that I need to trust James Joyce because he knows what he's doing. And even if he's writing something that's about tedium, it turned out that's not the experience that people had.
Well, what role did courage play in that case? Did it
In
take
that,
courage?
it was basically the courage that it took was that that I'm risking facing impatience and anger from all these people who came in and paid good money to see me do this, and all I did was irritate them. That was my fear. That was my actual fear, and that when they would and that if anybody would confront me with that, I mean that it really felt like it would be kind of lame to blame James Joyce for it. Right?
That's good. Good,
So
Neal.
here's my favorite um, uh, example of risk, courage, faith, whatever it is, and that was from a Gradus performance, I think 2015 or something like that. And this was, and as I said, this was one of these long 2-hour versions of the performance versions of this. And again, the number of notes and how long each section is are all, I'm tossing coins to do it. And the middle section of that performance, the note that was picked, it was a single note, and it was very high up on the keyboard, so that there's like no reverberation, no sustain, and it's almost impossible to get any variation in tone color on this note. And that's the only note I had to work with, and that also happened to be the section of the piece that's going to last an hour. And so I'm coming in and I'm saying that, okay, do I believe in what I'm doing or don't I? Because kind of the belief, the credo here is that music can be made with any of those single notes on the piano. And it can be made for a long time if you need to. And this seemed like it really pushed the limit. But I said, okay, I'm going to trust the chance operations. I'm going to trust my commitment to this thing. And the first bit of the piece, I think there was like 20 minutes where I actually had a fair number of notes to work with. And I'm coming up to this point where the 20 minutes are up, and now I'm going into this hour, 60 minutes, where all I have is that ding, ding, ding up on the high end of the keyboard.
Yeah.
And I take a deep breath as I'm going to do that. Now, I perform this Gradus generally in summer at the chapel performance space, same place where I perform the Wake. And in the summertime, I open all the windows so that all the sound from outside comes in. And so as I'm taking this deep breath to plunge into the abyss, a little bird outside starts to sing. It had not been singing before. And so I get this cheep, 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 cheep. And so I answer ding, 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 ding. And the bird keeps singing. The bird keeps singing for an hour.
Oh my God.
The bird had not been there before. I would have noticed because I leave a lot of space.
Yeah.
Even when I'm have more notes to work with. I mean, I would have noticed, oh, there's a little bird here. That's nice. But it was not there. He came in on cue.
Oh my God.
Sounds like cue. And he was there. The little bird was there, just cheeping for the whole hour.
Yeah.
You know, and it was, yeah. I mean, it gives
That's magical. Really great story, Neal, because that's like Messiaen. learning from the
Yeah.
birds, and Eric
Yeah.
Dolphy learned from the crickets. But I maybe it was with you or someone recently said we came to the conclusion that, yeah, we think humans invented whistling or singing from hearing the nature, but biomimicry. But it could be the reverse.
Mhm.
Humans could have started humming and whistling, and then the birds imitated us. It sounds crazy, but in that case, it sounds like, oh, because when the squirrel comes in my yard, I go, and they'll
Yeah.
turn their head. Now, it might not be turning the head because they're hearing my sound, but I kind of want to think they are.
I don't know if this is accurate, but my son was telling me that it's that cats among each other, they don't meow. They don't make those meow sounds. That the meow is that's an adaptation that cats figured out that it's cats are trying to sound like babies. You know,
Wow.
cat, and I don't, and like I say, I've only heard this from my
Yeah.
son, but it sounds like that's interesting. I mean, that was an adaptive thing to elicit care
Yeah.
from these human beings. I mean, that's how they do it. That meowing and mewing um,
That's
is
really good. That helps
they're
me
trying to
develop
imitate.
my theory. Yeah,
Yeah.
most people hate that theory. They at the wake last night, they said, "No, that's no way." But here's the third one in this trio. Viola Spolin, she kind of invented comedy improv in Chicago. She was a social worker doing role playing exercises, and it morphed into the Groundlings, Saturday Night Live, and all comedy improv. Her line is, if the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it. What role does struggle play in your creative process?
Hmm. I like that idea. I like the idea of that transparency. Um, I tend to feel like it's my job if I'm a performer to I wanna know what I'm doing before I get up on stage, and I want to be able to sink down into it
Yeah,
and deliver the goods, you know?
yeah,
Um, I mean, what I've seen here is an example of a very graceful version of that kind of transparency that you can hear. I think it's on Bruce Springsteen's live DVD from a Barcelona concert from 2003. And somewhere in the middle of that show, he comes out and he does a solo piano piece. I think he's um, maybe Spirit in the Night. It may be For You. I think it's Spirit in the Night that he comes out and he's playing it and he gets into the middle of the song and he blanks on the verse and he just stops and you see him on stage. He goes, can't remember it. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna back up and crazy Davy got really hurt. Walked into the and blanks again. And he takes about 3 or 4 times before he actually gets back and remembers the line and moves forward. But there's no sense of panicking or trying to cover up.
yeah,
It's very beautiful. It's really beautiful. Um, I mean, you're in front of this crowd, I mean, who's paid like a lot of money for their tickets.
yeah,
It's thousands of people, and you're fucking up your own song. And and it's like just consummate grace. And he
yeah,
just says, no, okay, and he makes it part of the show, and there's and brings this suspense to it. Is he going to get
yeah.
there? Is he actually going to remember the line? um, so
Well, that's a good example of struggle being incorporated,
Yeah.
like just work it in. That's like, I forgot to ask you, the other question was Thelonious Monk says there are no wrong notes. Any comment?
I like it. I like it.
Because
I mean,
it's like,
that's it's I mean, and that's like Bruce too. I mean, that comes to it. It says once you're playing live, once you're playing with people, it's what's happening. What's happening is the performance.
yeah,
Um, and you are there. You're there with these people.
yeah,
Um, and it's sacred space. I mean, I think that's part of it, is that whatever happens is part of it, and your job as the performer is to hold that space. I mean,
yeah,
to let this let the radiance happen.
yeah. That's the Herbie Hancock lectures on that when he hit a wrong note with Miles when he was very
Yeah.
young, and Miles
Yes.
Miles looked at him and he says, "No, don't worry, just cover it up. It's how good you cover it up, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Just
not
which
cover it up,
means
how
incorporate.
you incorporate it,
How you
yeah,
incorporate it. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and play it again."
You
Well,
do you
this
know
is
the complete Pluck Nickel sessions? Do you know
no, I
those?
know about him, yeah,
All right. Well, listen to him sometime. It's jazz like no other jazz I've heard.
yeah,
It's ostensibly it's straight ahead playing, but
yeah.
a lot of it is really weird. And I found out actually pretty recently that Tony Williams, who was like, I don't think Tony Williams was even 18 years old
He was
when
about
they played
17,
it.
18, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was Tony Williams who, before the gig, said, you know what? Let's play anti jazz. Anti
Wow.
jazz. Let's go out and we're going to play whatever you're supposed to do. We're doing the opposite of that.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and remember that when you when you go listen to those sessions, because that's what they're doing. What I love about that is when I first heard it is, oh, Tony Williams is huddling up with Hancock and Shorter and Ron Carter, and the kids are going to prank the old man. And that's what I initially thought of. I thought about, no way, that would not be how it would work. Not
No.
in that group. There's no way. I mean, Miles would have kicked all our asses,
Yeah.
if they were trying to prank him in front of company. No, it's like I have to imagine that this is a band meeting, and Williams says this, and Miles says, "Yeah, let's do that," which
Yeah.
is which is amazing. First of all, because this is the guy letting a 16 or 17-year-old, have an idea and honoring that and
Honor.
carrying that forward. Um, and creating some music that isn't like that. The music on those Plug Nickel sessions isn't like anything I've ever heard any group do at all. It's not like Albert Eiler, but it's not like, some just basic
Yeah.
straight ahead group either. It's something that's this a straight ahead group that is really coloring outside the lines. And that may have everything to do with just what this 16-year-old kid, just like kind of burst out and said, "Let's play anti-jazz." And
Beautiful. I can't wait to listen to that. So, Neal, this is a question about archive because it's similar to your talk about being present in the performance. And the word archive comes from 1400s, keep safe, free from harm. 200 years later, 1600s, it's what we know archive is, a record preserved as evidence. But
mhm,
Charles Baudelaire said, if you try to make a statement long, deep, and rich, it will age very fast. If you
mhm,
try to own the day you're talking, it will last forever. Or as David Lee Roth said, here today, gone later today. So it's this idea is archiving more innate or more invented? And do you have plans for your own archive? And just a little more background, it's like Ram Dass taught us, live in the moment, be here now. Why should we save all this crap if the whole point is to live in the moment? I go to the library every day, but I love that the futurists thought up, let's burn the libraries. And, Wyndham Lewis said, artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. So, the Egyptians kept stuff in their coffin. Why do we have to save all this crap? I know the evidence is study the past, but why do we keep all this crap if the point of life is to live in the moment?
Well, I'm kind of having it both ways because I'm actually pretty horrible about saving or organizing what I do. It's when it's left to me, I do all these Facebook live performances of wake chapters, and you can find them if you're really diligent, but you have to scroll down through everything on the Finnegan's Wake project page that is there to get to them. They're down there someplace, but that's not my forte. Is of being a good librarian. Um, and fortunately for me, my brother-in-law is a very conscientious documenter of pretty much everything that anybody does that's in his circle. I mean, the various composers that we know. I mean, he records everything at every performance he goes to, as assuming the performer is willing. So he has documented all of my wake performances, all the Gradus performances, all the Gradus rehearsals that when I'm working on it, I'm working on it in his home. So it's all there. And I'm really grateful for that.
But is
But
that need, is that need? I understand you're personal. You're lucky you have that. You don't have to
yeah,
clutter your mind too much. You have him backing you up. That's
I
good.
have, and it's like I think about it. Okay, I need to finally get myself a SoundCloud account and put the Gradus stuff up online and get all those wake performances out and available. I'm actually the wake stuff. I'm not that gung ho on making it available because the performances, the live performances, I don't feel like are. If you're not there in the room, I'm not sure they communicate exactly what I want communicated.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I'm saying. Like, do you think that archiving is more innate or more invented by humans?
oh, I think we invented it. Sure. I don't.
Wow.
You know. I don't. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some archiving that happens in our brains, but we know from Elizabeth Loftus's research, especially, that memory is not reliable. Um, I mean, I very much want to, in principle, I think I want to get all the Gradus stuff up online so everybody can listen to it. As far as the wake, um, once I've gotten through all 17 chapters, because I'm not going to have time to work on this beforehand, I would like to do proper studio recordings of each chapter.
Yeah.
I'm talking with a friend of mine about doing a film of chapter one, done on location in Dublin. But that's going to be sometime. That's at least 6 or 7 years out.
Yeah.
Before I get to that, so I'm crossing my fingers because I'm 66 years old now,
Yeah.
so I'm setting up, quite an agenda for myself that's going to get into my 80s or 90s or something before
Yeah.
everything's said and done. But I do want to. What I've been doing with the wake so far feels very much like it's stuff in the moment. It's stuff
Yeah.
that I've done in living rooms and in performance spaces, and it feels like it's very idiomatic to that. And I
Yeah.
don't feel like I mean, for one thing, when I perform at chapel performance space, I perform in the dark, so it's not something that a video or a film would capture.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm moving around a lot. I'm, walking around and going up to the piano and coming back. So there would be a lot of dead air in an audio recording of that. So I absolutely don't think of any of those performances as being something where it would be essential to. I don't think it can be documented.
Yeah.
I don't think you can't convey the particular power of sitting in a dark room with somebody reciting this stuff. You can't convey the sense of the space. Um,
Well, I think with the wake, the
so yeah,
essential is you have to be looking at the words as the words are being recited, whether it's, a group of people or one person, but you have to look at the words. Ulysses, you can have famous movie stars reading it on the radio, big deal. But the wake is a living organism when a group of people are
yeah.
reading it aloud.
And
So,
I'm performing it in a situation that makes it impossible for you to see the page
yeah,
because we're sitting together in the dark.
yeah,
So I'm
wow.
taking that book of the dark stuff literally, and that is a place where I feel like I'm really kind of going out on a limb because I think, hmm, and I have gotten feedback from people that, especially once I started doing the Facebook Live performances, that people would say, "Oh, it's really great. I just follow along the page while you're doing it, and it really brings it to life." And that gives me pause.
Yeah.
Um, but I like the idea of performing it in the dark, and I like the
Yeah.
idea of people experiencing it in the dark as pure sound.
Pure
And
sound.
I realize that that's incomplete.
Yeah.
I realize that that's incomplete. I mean, because you're absolutely right that if you're not seeing what's on the page, you're missing part of a multimedia performance. But
Yeah.
that's where I'm a fanatic, I guess.
Yeah.
That
Well,
I want to make the thing work as a sound experience in darkness.
yeah.
Um, and and I'm leaning into that, and I may be completely wrong, but there you go.
No, that's what I think all great art is what you don't just settle for it. You see what it can do to you and what is it going to cause you to do. That's the more important
Yeah.
aspect. So, what do you think the motive of the cave artist was? The interesting thing is we can document and see these scratchings on the inners of caves, but we don't have cave music documented or cave
No, no.
dance. But of cave music, cave dance, and cave art, what do you think their motive was?
That stuff is so beautiful. Yeah, you've seen the Herzog movie?
Yes.
Yeah. That was stunning. I kicked myself that I didn't get my ass to a theater to see it in 3D.
Yeah.
Um, but that art is so beautiful, and the theories I've read. I mean, reading Joseph Campbell, he talks about the idea that what they're doing in the caves is they're basically having magical ceremonies in the hopes of um, summoning these animals out there in the outside world. I mean,
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense. I mean, that feels about right.
Yeah.
But I guess I just love that people that far removed from us, and in these terribly difficult circumstances in these caves, which aren't easy to access, and would have been less easy to access in the times that the art was made. I mean, somehow getting down there using torches and keeping your torch lit while you're crawling through these really narrow passages to get down there, and then getting down there, and then you're making this art by torchlight, and probably having your torch go out and getting stuck down there until somebody hopefully comes down and finds you. Um, and creating things which are still so beautiful. I mean, beautiful in a way that connects to us right now. I mean, this is calling this primitive art is absolutely that doesn't scan.
No.
I mean, that stuff is not primitive. Um, I mean, Campbell talks about, they're drawing these animals and they're working it out in such a way that there are bumps and bulges in the wall that correspond to like the hips of the antelope. And um, I mean, it's just, you feel like you're in church. I mean, I've never been actually down there, but but reading Campbell write about them, I mean, seeing Herzog's movie, I mean, that feels right. I mean, that these
Yeah.
are cathedrals.
Well, do you think Neal Joyce was doing something similar, summoning, maybe not animals, but summoning something? Because in part one, when I was asking you about the tool you gravitate towards and the toy you gravitate towards, you said something astounding to me. You said that's what the wake is. It's a tool and a toy to
Mhm.
awaken us from the nightmare of history.
Yes.
So was the wake, or is the wake similar to cave art? Is it summoning something? And what is that it's summoning?
Um, I can't. Once I made the connection between history is a nightmare from which I am trying to awake, and I thought of how many points on which that sentence from Ulysses lines up with Finnegan's Wake. Um, I can't not connect Finnegan's Wake and that idea, and so I think that the function of Finnegan's Wake is to awaken us from the nightmare of
Yeah,
history. And I don't remember how deep I went into this in the I probably talked about the connection of the word history and the word story, and that in Spanish and Italian, historia is history and story are the same word. And so that it's not just about awakening from the nightmare of history, from rich people with weapons dominating all of us. It's not that simple, but that possibly Joyce is thinking about the idea that the idea of story itself is imprisoning and nightmarish.
yeah,
That by telling stories we are caging ourselves in a scenario of cause and effect, of of a situation where there are winners or losers, and where we need to prevail, we need to win. Um, we need, and everything needs to make sense along the way. So particularly as I'm getting to when I think since we last spoke, I mean, I've been preparing part 2, chapter 3, this enormous chapter, which I'll be performing in Seattle in December. And it's going to be like 4.5, 5 hours long, something like that. It's an enormous text, and I've never done anything comparable to this. I've never learned something this long or performed something this long. So I figured out a few months back that um, that I don't want to just learn this thing and take the whole damn thing out um, in public all at one go. And I decided that what I wanted to do is figure out some people who might be interested to invite them to the house, and I will perform these portions of it,
Yeah.
on the way. And we had some folks over the end of January to do the first 20 pages or so of part 2, chapter 3, and this is the section focused on the Norwegian captain and the tailor. And previously, for all the chapters so far, I've given like a little synopsis. I've looked at the James Joyce Digital Archive. I've looked at Campbell's Skeleton Key. I looked at other places, kind of piece together and give people a sense of this is what's going on in the story. And these are I'm just going to give you some things that you can hang your hat on as we're going through here. And up through the last 2 chapters, I felt like that's been a legitimate endeavor. And I even had, when I did part 2, chapter 1, which is about the kids at play, I actually had my Irish friend, Jessica Kernahan, commented at the performance. And she really doesn't know Finnegan's Wake at all to speak of, but she was talking about when I performed it, that it really reminded her of what it sounded like on her grade school playground in Northern Ireland when she was growing up. And she was really grateful that I gave her that. That was really moving. I felt like that weird ass part 2, chapter 2, with the marginal notes and the footnotes and everything else, that really kind of conveys the sense of you're a kid and under duress, you're locked up in your room and you're doing your homework, and it's like there's that going on. But this time, as I'm preparing my notes and I'm talking about this joke about the Norwegian captain and Curse the tailor, and there's a radio playing and everybody in the bar is ordering drinks and everything else, and I'm talking about this, and I'm introducing it, I'm saying, and I've gone through the synopses of these, and you can hear what I'm saying, and if you want to, you can try and track this from what I'm about to recite, but good luck.
Good luck.
It's like, I feel like, in the conclusion, this is just like in the last few that I never said anything like that I said before. It says, what I'm telling you now is basically going to be worthless for your experience of what you're about to hear, because it's just so my thought is that in part 2, chapter 3, the Wake achieves liftoff. It's like it leaves, there's a story under there, and if you read the book about how Joyce wrote Finnegan's Wake, Sam Sloat, and
Sam's book, yeah,
that one, which I've been digging into also, which I find is incredibly helpful, and I think it's Heyman is writing the piece on the genetic origins of this chapter, and he's saying that that the story is really, it's all there. It's the ground, the foundation of it is like more worked out, more clear than other things. But my God, I'm it's like I feel this is the place where the book awakes from history, from story. It's like part 2, chapter 3 is something else entirely. It's this resultant, this distillation that has its roots in the story, but it's just doing something else. It's doing something beautiful, but it's like there's no cause and effect. There is no narrative, there's no something. It's like it all proceeds from that, but it's
But is
it's
that
just going somewhere. It is cut loose
it's
from its
cut
text.
loose? What page is that approximately, Neal?
Well, that's
Part 2,
well,
chapter
I got 'em
3.
at, I mean, this is well, part two, chapter three. It's the what I'm working with in my pocket here. It's in the restored version, which I know this has come up if
Yeah,
on some of the Austin groups because I can't. We just
yeah,
moved. I can't find my
yeah,
Orthodox version of it, so I've just got the restored version of it. And this is I'm at 259 is kind of in the middle of that chapter.
yeah.
Um, and, um, so I had to after I gave the background to these wonderful 7 people who came over to listen. I said, it's kind of good information to know about the Norwegian captain and the tailor and the suit and the suit that won't fit because the guy's impossible to fit and all that but it's going to be no help at all as far as you're listening to it. If you want
Right.
to actually enjoy this, let go of forget everything I just told you and just listen. Just
Yeah.
listen. Um,
Well,
and
anyways, Neal, this has
and
been
that's
really,
maybe is that awakening from the nightmare of history then?
yeah,
Is that has
yeah,
Joyce succeeded in this chapter by just just lifting us out of that?
yeah,
Um, and I've made a connection of I mean when I felt like following this thread, this idea of awakening from the nightmare of history, and I was thinking about uh, the way Joyce writes about flowers and the way Joyce writes about the songs of birds and the connection, the way that kine sentence keeps returning and returning in various guises and is actually literally quoted, the only verbatim literal quotation back in the part two, chapter two in French. Um, and I'm thinking about the birds and I'm thinking about the flowers and I think, oh, the Sermon on the Mount.
yes. Wow.
Look at the flowers of the field. They toil not, nor do they spin.
Wow.
Look at the birds of their look at the birds of their air. Does not your heavenly Father care for them? Um, and that's Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah.
It's changed the way I think about Jesus too,
Wow.
because is Jesus when he's saying consider the lilies or consider the birds of the air, is Jesus directing us to a practice of deep listening and deep looking,
Wow.
um, and and awakening us thereby from the nightmare of history.
Exactly.
Um,
Neal, we're going to close out now, and I hope we can do a part 3 and really get into Joyce because really, this one was on music. But I wanted to say what you just said evoked this quote I brought up last time.
yeah,
Just Nassim Taleb said, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can
yeah,
tell who a hero is. And in a lot
yeah,
of ways, you're a hero to me because of your study of music and Joyce and how you can articulate it. And, I think McLuhan nailed it in a way by just summarizing. He said Joyce uses the pun as a way of seeing the paradoxical exuberance of being through language. And it's so
mhm,
well. Now, in closing, I wanted to ask you a stupid question, but it's sort of fun. And it's Ben Ratliff. He wrote a book about Bill Frisell, and he says, I mean sound as it has long functioned among jazz players as a
mhm,
mystical technical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full, insensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in a single note. So, if me and you hear a note from Miles Davis, Ben said that's fragile and pointed. So he would summarize that sound in a couple words. He said Coltrane is slightly undercooked and urgent. If someone was writing about Neal, in summarizing your sound in a couple words, what 2 words would you say they got me? I mean, in all inclusive, in your music, rock, experimental, and Joycean, Wakean, what 2 words would you appreciate they summarize you?
Hmm. First 2 words that come to mind are deep and inaudible.
Inaudible? I like that. That is so good because go ahead, because you just said deep.
I just gave the first 2 that came to mind because I don't
Yeah,
know how I'm gonna. I mean, that's a
yeah.
fabulous question. Who was the writer?
His name is Ben Ratliff, Ratliff.
Yeah,
And he wrote this like 2-inch book about Bill Frisell, who's the
that's
guitarist.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Oh,
it is.
I know Bill. I mean,
Yeah.
it was Bill used to come into the Tower Records where I worked on in the University District. I mean, I was. He's such a shy,
Yeah.
self-effacing guy,
Yeah.
and he would come up and check out. I was buying jazz at that time,
Yeah.
and he came upstairs and was walking around. And he came up and he bought a few things, and I think he had the downbeat for that week. And I said, "Congratulations," because he'd just been named like guitarist of the year
Yeah.
for that. And he just looked at me with blank and says, "What? What do you mean, congratulations?" I said, and I had opened up the downbeat, and I had the privilege of showing him that, look, you're like the guitarist of the year. And he kind of goes,
Right.
I mean, what a sweet man, brilliant musician
Yeah.
too.
Because
But
Ben calls Bill, uses 3 words: rubbery, wobbly, and woozy.
mhm. Yeah.
But I love, he says Coleman Hawkins, ripe and mellow.
So
But
what's he got? What's he got for Ornette?
I don't have that one. I
Yeah.
wish I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Ornette. I love Ornette so much. Something just came up with Ornette. Oh, the sleep talking. That was
Yeah.
really
Yeah. We
happy.
were talking
That
about
came
that.
up. But
Yeah. I just actually put that track at the museum. We have a staff curated ambient playlist
yeah,
month by month, and for last week for Black History Month, I included sleep talking
yeah.
in my 25 tracks that I threw into our mix.
Yeah,
Um,
no, Ornette is so a deep musician. I mean, when John Zorn had his big tribute to Ornette, uh, he says, "Hey, do you want to play?" And Ornette said, "Well, okay." So he sat off on the stage, and all these hot shot musicians are playing Ornette kind of note for note, and Ornette's off to the side playing something different. But God bless
did
what
you ever
Ornette.
did you ever see him? Did
Oh
you see
yeah,
him?
I saw Ornette several times.
Yeah.
I met him when the film Shirley Clark's film
Yes. Yes.
played,
That's a
and
beautiful film.
I told him I played his main lick on my kazoo all day, and he loved that.
What's it?
I love his.
That one.
Hello, that's it.
Sing to
I
me.
knew you would know it, Neal. And I love that when he met Keith Jarrett. Keith Jarrett is Austrian, but people think because he's got a afro early in his career that he's black, and he sort of looks black. And Ornette said, "Are you black?" And Keith said, "No." And Ornette said, "You've got to be black."
I saw Ornette. I only saw Ornette during the primetime years, but I
That's
saw him
pretty
about
good.
four times. Last time I saw him was in San Diego, and he always had these double rhythm sections, like two drummers,
Oh,
two
I
bass players.
saw that. Yeah.
Right. And
Oh, good.
the last time I saw him, he'd substituted a tabla player for one of the drum kits, and it was
Oh,
incredible.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Jamal on bass and who was that?
Jamaluddin Takuma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and James Blood Ulmer play guitar. It was such an amazing. Ornette's whole career is amazing. I love it.
Yeah. All from front to back. I mean that I used to just dig into there was that Atlantic box set they had of
Yeah.
the Beauty is a Rare Thing. Beauty that with all that stuff with Don Cherry and
Yeah.
those people.
Well, beauty is not a rare thing with you, Neal. What an amazing pleasure. And maybe we'll go down the line 4 or 5 months or 6 months, but sometime in the future, let's meet
Always
again.
happy to talk to you more. This is
Yeah.
you always surprise me, Gerry. You
Well,
always something surprising.
Neal, that's what life's all about is create the unexpected, and you do that. So I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, but I do want to thank you immensely and tell you I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever, or as Lord Buckley said, dig infinity.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Thanks, Neal.
See you.